Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the stand-up comedy class. I am your instructor, Jesse Fernandez. I am a stand-up comedian. I have been for 19 years, I think, at this point, by the time you watch this. I'm a feature act at the Punchline Comedy Club in San Francisco, as well as the Punchline Comedy Club in Sacramento, at Cobb's Comedy Club, Rooster Teeth Feathers, all sorts of clubs all over the place. I am a comedy writer as well. I've written for headlines for a section of The Onion, their video game section. I was head writer of an entertainment website called eBaum's World. I've written for TED Talks and the Discovery Channel and Starbucks, Hitachi, MSN. I've also taught comedy at the Punchline and at multinational corporations that you have definitely heard of and whose search engines you've probably used. So I have existed in comedy for a very long time and done that as a full-time thing forever. And so I just say all that to let you know that I know what I'm doing. I know how to teach this. I've been working on teaching stand-up comedy to people for a long time, teaching it better and better and better. And so what I'm giving you now is a culmination of all of the honing that I've done in that process that has really started from when I started doing comedy. I started and just immediately began writing down things that I wanted to teach people eventually. And here we are. So I've packed a lot into this course, but I know you can handle it. And you can take it at your pace. You can slow down and go back over videos and things like that. It's really densely packed in there. But man, here we go. So first, let's talk about some things that you should know about stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy is something that you can get better at, right? You are not just set with the level of humor that you've got. You can absolutely get funnier. There's no magic. There's no funny bone that you either have or don't have. It is a big set of skills. And so if you decide that you want to get really good at it, that's just a matter of time, effort, and intelligence. And if you're lacking in any one of those three, honestly, just put more into the other two, and you'll be fine. I've seen tons of people go from seeming like they don't have an aptitude for it to working really hard for a couple of years and then being one of the best comedians out there. So you can absolutely do it. This is a great choice to take this course. Some things that you'll gain from stand-up comedy are you will become funnier, like I said. You will become a better public speaker. You'll get more comfortable in front of audiences. You will learn more about people because as you do comedy, you are on a certain level doing science. You're doing social experiments. You have hypotheses. Each joke is a little test that you put out there in front of the audience. And you're doing that test and you're thinking, I think that something's going to happen. I think this is going to make an audience laugh. And then you learn based on their reactions whether that does or doesn't, and you get some hints about how they're going to react to future tests that you make. And then your tests over time become more and more accurate so that you eventually just know so much more about people. What's going to make them laugh? What's going to make them comfortable? What's going to shift their perspectives in certain ways? It's super helpful for just becoming better with people. Doing stand-up comedy is also a really nice badge of honor. Like, people don't even have to see you do a stand-up set. If they hear that you're a stand-up comedian or that you've done stand-up before, they go like, wow, that's a really brave person. And honestly, they're right. It's really cool that you're interested in doing this. And doing it means that you're brave. It means that you're interesting and adventurous, and I think that's awesome. Another thing that you gain from doing stand-up comedy, and this is one that some people overlook, and that is that you help people. You really get people to be, happier than they were before. There's a reason that people go to stand-up comedy. There's so many options for entertainment, but they still choose stand-up comedy. There are filled shows all the time. And that's because it makes people happy. It gives people epiphanies. It improves their lives in meaningful ways. A comedian, Sean Patton, once told me that there are so many times when somebody will come to a show and they have been having like a miserable like week or month or year, and they kind of are going, they don't even really think that they're going to feel a lot of happiness, but they're giving it a shot. And then you, the comedian, say something that makes them laugh, that makes them happy. And it's the first time they've laughed in a long time. And it's because you hit that one spot that they had been concerned about, but you gave them a new perspective, an idea that like maybe there is another way of looking at this that's more positive, and there's a way through this, and on the other side I'll be happier. I can be happy the way I want to be again. You give them that hope, and they may not even say anything to you. They may just walk right by you, but they'll wake up a little earlier the next day, maybe get some exercise or eat healthier, are actually productive at work. And then by the end of the week, they're in a much better spot, and it's because of you. And you may never know, but if you do many sets with a lot of different audiences over time, it's pretty unreasonable to think that you haven't done that for people. And I think that's pretty cool. Another thing that you gain from stand-up comedy is that if you have aspirations in some type of comedy or even entertainment generally, it's hard to get in. There are bottlenecks all over the place where you need people to see you be great, right? In a different format, right? Writing a script or something like that. But a lot of people are writing scripts. There's this massive pile, and they're not going to read all those scripts. They can't. They don't have the time. But if they see you kill it in stand-up comedy, they may ask you for that script. There have been short films and movies. I got to act in a movie with Danny Glover and James Roday. And it's because somebody saw me do a stand-up set, and they liked my work, and they asked me to do it. So opportunities come from stand-up if you have aspirations that are adjacent. That's pretty cool. One thing that can be very helpful for some people from doing stand-up comedy, and this may be something that resonates with you, is that sometimes it's uncomfortable to have conversations with people because it's ambiguous. You don't really know how they feel about you. But if you're on stage and you say a joke and the joke works and the audience laughs, man, that's a pretty surefire, like, you know, that audience really liked that moment, and they probably really like you too. And so it can be this nice kind of digital reaction that you get from an audience when they love you and that moment that you just provided for them. It could be a very comforting thing to have that level of power in the social engagement. You know, I don't know why you're taking the class. There are a number of reasons why you might be interested. Maybe it's those things that I mentioned, maybe something else. But you guys should know that those are benefits that you're going to get. And how about now, this seems like a good time for me to tell you the reasons that I'm teaching this class. One, I really like to help people get over that hump. If people are having trouble with something, then I want to help. I kind of just am, it's one of the big joys that I get out of life. I really like to make people laugh and help them in that way, but this way is really satisfying for me too. Also, my parents are both teachers, and so, like, I don't know, maybe I just get that drive from them. So yeah, there's that. It's also something that I'm equipped to do. Like, I know how to teach this stuff. I have intuition, but I've come through like a tradition in stand-up comedy of being a mechanic. I know how to put together jokes. I know how to break down the mechanisms that are happening in stand-up comedy that make things successful or not successful, things like that. And so that puts me in a place where I'm pretty well equipped to teach that to other people. And that's helpful because you can't really teach intuition, but you can grow intuition from the fundamentals that you can teach. So you will be getting those fundamentals from this course, this nice, thorough tool set, so that you can feel competent and confident moving forward in stand-up comedy. Let's talk about some things that you should know about stand-up comedy from the start. One, stand-up comedy is sort of like a quilt, which sounds kind of weird at the start, but this metaphor, it just rings so true. So when you're making a quilt, you're putting a lot of different patches on there, right? And if you held up that quilt and you looked at what you saw, at what you made, and you noticed that there were holes where you hadn't put any patches on that quilt, would you go, I guess I don't have the quilt making bone. I'm done. I shouldn't be a quilt maker. No, that's not how that works at all. You would just get some material and you would patch those holes in that quilt. Well, I want you to look at stand-up comedy in kind of a similar way. If you do a stand-up set and something goes wrong and the set doesn't go as well as you would have liked, I don't want you to go, I don't have the funny bone. No, I want you to go, what exactly went wrong? And what can I do to make it go better next time? And then write some material so that you can either avoid that issue altogether or so that you can respond effectively if that issue comes up. And then you can move forward and just keep looking towards improvement rather than looking at what happened as like a big failure. Because it's not. Each of those moments is an opportunity to learn. So don't be a perfectionist, just be growth-minded. Perfect comes last, all right? And if you're comparing yourself to the comedians that you see on TV, that's not healthy, because the comedians that you see on TV are a product of all of those iterations, all of those mistakes that they learned from and improved from. And you are at the phase where you're learning and improving. And eventually, if you keep working hard, you will get there. You will get to that point where you're that comedian who's super funny that other people see, and then they go, oh man, well, I wish I could be that perfect, right? But if you look at perfect from the start, if you hold yourself to that standard, then it can be really disheartening. And it can make you afraid to try because you won't be that perfect that you know exists. Nobody's perfect until the end of the process, right? And that process can just, and even once you get there, honestly, you'll just notice other things that you can improve. So just stay improvement minded. Okay. All right. So stand-up comedy, like a quilt, you notice the flaws, get some material to patch up those holes in your comedy skill set quilt. The next thing to know about stand-up comedy from the start is that there is no age limit to this. You can be any age at all. I know a person who started stand-up comedy in their 60s, and then by the time they were in their 70s, they were a touring comedian. You never have to stop doing this thing. This is an art that you can just continue to enjoy and provide enjoyment for other people forever. And I think that's awesome. Another thing that you should know about stand-up comedy from the start is that it is easier to be funny on stage than off stage. And that might seem a little counterintuitive, but I'll explain. One, the audience thinks it's scary to be on stage. And so if somebody's on stage, they give that person props. They immediately think that that person is brave and more of a leader. And so you get those points that help you go from, starting to making the audience laugh. The audience is there for a purpose, that is to laugh. They're also there to feel good, have a good time, etc. And you provide all of those things. They're looking for something that is concurrent with your goals, which is to make them laugh and make them have a good time and feel good, right? And so when they are looking for those jokes and then they hear those jokes, they laugh. So the concurrency of those goals is very helpful. It's different from a regular conversation off stage where the person that you're talking to may just be looking for their turn to speak, and you may tell a hilarious joke, but because they had something on deck that they were planning to say, they don't give you the laugh that your great joke deserved. On stage, you're way more likely to get that laugh. You're elevated, you're amplified, the audience is facing you, they give you their attention, you don't have to win it at a proper show. All of these things, the lights are focusing attention on you. All of these things are helpful to get the audience to laugh, that you don't benefit from that off stage. And so for those reasons and more, it's easier to be funny on stage than off. Let's talk about note taking. It is very useful to take notes in stand-up comedy, because if you just try to remember those funny thoughts that you have, that's hard to do. You're bound to forget those things. You're not a computer. You're not a totally locked safe that nothing gets out, right? Things will disappear, and you want to keep those, because for a stand-up comedian, forgetting a great idea is like dropping a pizza face down. It's terrible. You don't want that to happen. And so you can secure your comedy pizza by having a notebook and writing in it. Write down ideas that you think are funny, that you think could be funny, that aren't yet. In a later session, we'll go over how to turn those ideas into jokes. So even if they don't start funny, they can become funny, definitely. Write down anything that you think is unique, any things that are weird, or anything that you've been thinking a lot about recently. And part of the reason for that is that when you go to do like a proper writing session where you sit down with a pen and paper and you're going to write some comedy, there can be an issue where you don't know what to write about. You sit down and you're like, blank paper, what do I do? And you don't want to have that hurdle. You're trying to minimize hurdles. It's so much easier if you can go back to your notes and go, these are some ideas that I had. Let's see if I can be inspired by this one. And then move on to the next. Does this one inspire me today? Etc. Right? So you have these options to write about rather than thinking, what do I write about? What kind of notebook should you have? There are a lot of options. There are physical notebooks. There are digital notebooks. There are many types of digital notebooks. There are some types of physical notebooks. Let's talk about the broad categories, okay? So there are pluses and minuses to each. Neither one is right or wrong. It's just up to you, what works better for you. So there is a digital notebook. And for the digital notebook, that is great because your notes are backed up in the cloud. You can go back over all of the notes that you took very quickly because you can do word searches and write tags for your notes. You can type things super quickly. It's really fast. You can do the swipe to text. You can do the voice to text. It can be a really quick way of getting your notes down so that you can move about your day much more quickly. But there are some negatives to a digital notebook. If you write slowly, your brain is composing at the same time. You're still brainstorming throughout that entire process of writing down your ideas. If you can write down your ideas in the blink of an eye, then all of that extra brainstorming is gone, right? And so with a digital notebook, writing the ideas down really, really quickly can make the brainstorming process a smaller, less effective process. That can be an issue. Another issue is that on your digital notebook, you also have everything else. All of your notifications, emails, social media, all of it is right there also. And all of those things want to distract you. Pop-ups, notifications are popping up all the time. And so you may end up having a shorter writing session, a more distracted writing session than if you had a physical notebook where none of that stuff would pop up. Now, a physical notebook. The pluses are that it is a little slower to write things down, and so you have a little more time to compose. Another plus is that you can doodle, and that can be helpful for the brainstorming process for people. You can draw things. Some ideas make more sense as a visual. You don't want to get confused between the idea and the format. Some ideas are great for stand-up, but maybe it's also great for a sketch, for sketch comedy or a comic strip. And so you're a little more able to to showcase that in various formats, that idea in various formats, be it language, be it visual, or something like that. One thing that you can do, and this might be very useful, is have both. Have a physical notebook, maybe for the first drafts of things, or when you're writing down just like the random ideas that you have. Carry that physical notebook around with you, and then write those ideas down. And then later, as you transfer those onto your digital notebook, that is an extra writing session. As you transfer those to your digital notebook, you're thinking about those ideas again. And because it's part of your process, you are forced to do another mini writing session to get that into your digital notes. That can be helpful. So that's an option too. Let's talk about tagging your notes. It's a super useful thing to do because when you are writing down ideas for years, you're going to come up with thousands of ideas, which is awesome. That's so much opportunity for inspiration and so many ideas for later when you have a bit that you want to work on. Because if you decide that you want to write a joke about Labradors and you're 5 years into comedy, you want to be able to go back through your notes and just get all the ideas that you've ever come up with about dogs just right there at your fingertips. Super useful. And so when you are writing your notes down, think about how you're going to organize those notes and come back to them later. And one recommendation that I have for that is to think about your tags in terms of hierarchies. Okay, so go broad with the tags. Don't go specific with the tags. So if you wanted to write a joke about Labradors, your tag that you might search back through shouldn't say Labrador, because then you might go, well, do I have a tag for Labradors and a tag for dogs? I should search through both. And what if I wrote a joke about dogs generally, but I tagged it under Chihuahuas, so I better look through my tag for Chihuahuas. And then pretty soon you are looking through so many different tags that it makes that part of the process really laborious, really not fun, and it just takes way too long. And so I would say go broad with those tags, right? Don't write a tag for every breed of dog, write a tag for dog. Or maybe even go more broad, animals. Maybe you have a tag for animals. Maybe you have a tag for food, right? Rather than Mexican food or breakfast or whatever, right? Go broad with the tags. You want to think about this now so that you don't have to think about it so much later. I personally don't like administrative tasks very much at all. That's not why I got into comedy. And so it's really important to think hard about it now so that you don't have to think hard about it later. Okay? So organize your notes. Let's talk about collaboration in comedy. Collaborating in comedy can be a super useful thing. And it doesn't look like it, because when you see a comedian on stage, it's just one person by themselves telling jokes, being hilarious. But the process to get there can be a process that involves your friends, people whose opinions you trust about comedy, people who push you to get better, who can help you edit. That process of using your community and being helpful to your community in return is fulfilling, and it's productive for everybody involved. And so I really recommend finding some people who also like comedy, or who are also comedians, who are willing to be friends and help each other out. You're not the only one who's going to be wanting that. It's a natural human thing. And a lot of famous comedians have come up in groups together. You might have noticed, like certain comedians getting famous around the same time. Maria Bamford and Jackie Cation are good friends. They would write together. Bill Burr and Patrice O'Neal, I think, were good friends, and they came up in the same area and would joke around together. Moshe Kasher, Brent Weinbach, Alex Cole, all of these guys have been on the late night shows and written for TV shows, and W. Kamau Bell, Kevin Avery, both touring nationally comedians, one of which had a show on CNN that was the only comedy show I think that had ever been on CNN up to that point, and the other one has an Emmy for their writing comedy work. Coming up in cohorts, working with other people, super useful. Collaborate. Now, when you do collaborations, you want to have some ground rules, because we've all had collaborations that were not very useful, not very fun or fulfilling, and we don't want those, all right? And so it's good to have some ground rules. Here are the ground rules that I use for my collaborations, all right? 4 rules. 1, think solutions, not problems. Very useful if you can point out a path forward rather than a wall that stops the movement forward, right? It is easy to notice when something's not working, and it can feel useful to point that out, because if it's not working, they should know about it. But Tina Fey said that people in the writer's room don't last long if they just snipe down ideas, because it's not as useful as you'd think, and it actually is a hindrance to future productivity. There are a ton of studies that show that people they feel more creative. They give more output if they are feeling good. And if you point out a flaw, it makes them feel less good, right? And so you want to point out a solution so that they can stay feeling good, so that they can feel like they want to add more ideas and they feel more creative. It's so much more useful that way. If you just point out that flaw, everybody else who's having ideas, their train of thought is moving. They stop those trains of thought, because those are useful unless they solve this issue that you've pointed out, so that their other ideas won't be obsolete. And in that silence, everybody feels bad, especially the person who gave the original idea, right? It just creates this negative vibe. So give them an idea too. Wait an extra 10 or 30 seconds to come up with a solution and give that to them. And then everybody else, all those ideas that they came up with, still useful. And that idea that you gave as a solution can be a springboard for even more solutions, right? So think solutions, not problems. Rule number 2, be grateful for all the ideas that you receive, even if you don't plan to use them. You are, as the stand-up comedian, the arbiter. You decide. It's up to you. And so any idea that somebody gives you that you don't like, it's not a threat. You can just be grateful, because they gave you a gift. They're trying to help you. That's kind of them to do that. They're being a little vulnerable by sharing an idea too. I mean, it's hard to share ideas, but they did it for you to help. And so be grateful. Even if you don't plan to use that idea, you can steer them towards the direction that you want to go. Absolutely. You can say like, oh, thank you so much. That's super kind of you. If I go that direction, then I'm definitely going to think on that, because that is such a good idea. If I wanted to do X, Y, and Z, though, what do you think I can do to make that happen, right? So you can steer them towards the direction that you want to go while still being grateful. And if they share an idea that shows that they don't understand what you were going for, that's kind of a good note too. I mean, that tells you that maybe your idea wasn't as clear as you thought it was. So take it for what it's worth. And it's worth a lot. That's rule number 2. Rule number 3. What was rule number 3? Rule number 3. Keep the ideas flowing, right? There is a benefit to collaboration that is more than just you giving great ideas. And that other benefit is the collaging of ideas. When people hear other ideas out there in the ether, they have more to think about and combine with their other ideas in different and new ways, so that they can create potentially amazing ideas. And so you are being useful to your collaborators if you give ideas, even if they aren't the best ideas in the world, right? So keep those ideas flowing. And you don't have to own it completely. You don't have to be like, this is a great idea, even though you know it's not a great idea. You can absolutely say, I've half thought this out, or I don't think this is a great idea yet, but it might inspire somebody else. Or maybe you could finish this idea that I've started, but I can't complete it. Something like that, right? To distance yourself from it, but still contribute to the group if nobody else is sharing ideas. You want to keep those ideas flowing, okay? All right, final rule, give compliments. Give compliments, especially right after you hear an idea. When you are collaborating with other people, it's vulnerable to share ideas. It's especially the person who came up with the original idea. When they share that idea, they're saying, do you guys think this is good? Is this useful? Am I funny? On a certain level, they're going, do you guys believe in me? Is this proof of as an artist, like, you are kind of putting your heart on your sleeve every time you create something and share it with the world, right? And so in that vulnerable moment when somebody's asking you to help them with their idea, you want to be gentle so that you can keep the mood good and you can keep the productivity of that collaboration high. So give compliments, and there's always something to compliment. Even if you don't like the joke, there's always something to compliment. You can say, your delivery is amazing. I've never heard that topic before. That's such a unique topic. I think that there is so much potential with this. I love this direction that you're heading with it. That your delivery of this one line was excellent. There's always something that you can say, and then move on to fixing the joke. If the joke is broken, you don't have to pretend like it's great. That's not what giving compliments means. You're just giving compliments so that you can keep that productivity high and keep that mood good. It's really important. So part of a collaboration, I guess you're probably noticing, is people management in addition to idea generation. Okay. So those are the 4 rules. Keep the ideas flowing, give compliments, think solutions, not problems, and as the receiver of the ideas, be grateful for every idea, even if you don't plan to use that idea. Let's talk about brainstorming. Brainstorming can be a super fun thing to do because you're world building, you're expanding on ideas, you're giving yourself epiphanies that you've never thought about before. But that's only if you can get kind of a healthy relationship with that brainstorming process. One way of looking at brainstorming is, I need to come up with great ideas. And if you do that, then every time you come up with an idea that's not great, you may beat yourself up. You've made it kind of a pass-fail test. Your internal censor goes like, nah, that's not good. Why are you thinking of bad ideas? You should think of good ideas, right? And that sounds like it's the way to go because you want to end up with good ideas. But what that will do is make you afraid to do that activity because there's a bully involved. You're going to be beating yourself up for every idea that's not good. That's not very helpful. You want to create a situation where you enjoy the brainstorming process. And so instead of looking at it like a pointed, I have to get something good kind of process, I want you to look at it more as an open-ended exploration, right? Don't try to have the best ideas. Try to have every idea that you possibly can. You're exploring. You are having an idea that could lead to more ideas. Even if that idea isn't amazing, it opens up a chamber of new thoughts. And one of those ideas could be amazing. When you're doing like a physical exploration and you go over a hill and it doesn't lead to an incredible vista or treasure or something like that, you don't go, oh, I'm so dumb for exploring in this direction. No, you just go, we looked. We had to look to find out. Same goes with brainstorming. You have to look to find out. Follow those trains of thought. Don't get hyper-focused on, what you want this joke to be, because that stops you from exploring these other directions, right? If you want to explore in that direction, great, explore that direction, right? But don't say no to those other directions. Don't close those doors to the other chambers where there could be great ideas. Go back and explore those after you've explored this direction that you wanted to explore. Okay? And sometimes you got to do that for a long time. Not every idea is going to be great. And in fact, in comedy, there's a pretty low hit rate. It's Stephen Wright, who had done comedy for like 30 years, said that his rate for feeling comfortable trying a joke on stage was like 1 in 50 ideas. So if you're doing better than that, that's incredible. That's incredible. And if you're not, That's fine. Whatever your hit rate is, you should accept that and move forward. Because if you don't, then it starts to get difficult. Then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where you start to get down on yourself, and then, that makes you less creative and you don't want to give more ideas, etc. Right? So treat it like an exploration. Keep going. Keep searching. If it takes you pages and pages and pages to get one great good one-liner, awesome. Just do that again. Get another great one-liner. Do that enough times, and you have a great set. Cool. That's a successful process, not a process that has a bunch of failure. It's a process that leads to your successes.